Hi everyone, Stepan here. I'm going to show you my final game from the Villard tournament I played in July. And I faced an 1800 rated opponent in the Caro-Kann, and the game was interesting, but the context is interesting too. So this is the last round of the tournament, and if you have ever played tournaments in remote villages, then you will know what I'm talking about. So I'm playing in a village in basically the French Alps above Grenoble, which is a town there, and I don't have accommodation the day of the final round. It's usually like that because you're trying to save money, you don't want to pay for an extra day. The last round was played at 9:30 in the morning, and I had to go to Grenoble from that village. There's only one bus that fit my schedule, and I think it was at 12:30 p.m. So I basically had a couple of hours to finish the game and catch the bus. I had all my stuff with me during the game, put it next to the arbiter, and I wanted to win and catch the bus. That's ideal. Now here's the problem. If I miss that bus, I miss the bus from Grenoble to Marseille, and then I'm flying back to Zagreb, back to Croatia from Marseille that evening or early next morning. Lucia came from Valence, where we were staying together, to Marseille. She was waiting for me. So if I miss that bus, I have to figure out a way to get to Marseille, which wasn't easy. So with all that in mind, I come to the game. Now I have been preparing for this game, and I wanted to get a playable position in which my opponent would feel less comfortable. So my opponent started with c4. She usually plays the English, and I have to say that her results in the tournament were better than her rating. So I don't think she's weaker than me at all. Maybe a bit, but okay, it wasn't to be an easy game. So c6, and she plays e4, going into the accelerated Panov. I avoid the English, I don't play the main lines. I usually either get the Caro-Kann, the Panov, or the accelerated Panov, or some sort of Slav or semi-Slav position. So d5, and after ed, cd, cd, white is temporarily up a pawn, but after knight f6, it's hard to keep that pawn. The only way to do that is to go for bishop b5 lines, in which black is eventually able to regain that pawn in 99% of positions. She played knight c3. Okay, I took on d5, knight f3, and knight c6. And there are many moves here for white. White could choose to play bishop b5 or d4 or bishop c4. They are all okay. She chose bishop c4. And black has two options here. One of them is a bit riskier and also the main line, and also what I think my opponent must have expected, and that's knight b6. When you play knight b6, you will eventually be able to put your bishop outside of the pawn chain before playing e6. However, this knight is kind of misplaced. So after bishop b3, bishop f5, do not play bishop g4, because there could be bishop f7 sacrifices. d4, e6, castles, the bishop is outside of the pawn chain, and the knight isn't really able to set up a nice blockade of the d-pawn. In the accelerated Panov, you always play against an isolated queen's pawn. So ideally, you would like to play something like knight b4 or knight e7 to play knight d5, but that could be risky. And these positions are equal, but what I did is also fine. I played e6. That's slightly less common. It seems bad to keep the bishop here, but I had a very specific plan in mind. d4, bishop b4. And of course you're threatening to take on c3, so the knight has to be defended. Bishop d2 isn't really such a great move. Queen d3 is the best move, and that's what she played. Now, again, there are two options. You can play knight a5 here, and after knight a5, bishop b5, bishop d7, eventually your bad bishop is going to be traded off. But I wanted to keep pieces on the board. So if we trade all the pieces, it's highly unlikely that I will get any sort of winning chances. So I played knight c7, and this is as far as my prep had gone before the game. First of all, I didn't know whether we were going to play the accelerated Panov at all. There were other options. But knight c7 is an interesting move because it reinforces d5. It prevents my e-pawn from becoming an isolated d-pawn. However, the downside is that my king side is not defended at all. There are no defenders around my king. So she can try to transfer the bishop to c2, provoking a weakness, which is exactly what she did. Castles, castles, and bishop b3. So I have to start developing. I played bishop to d7, and after bishop c2, I played the move that I had decided to play basically before castling, because I had anticipated bishop b3, bishop c2. Again, there are a couple of options. You can play g6, but I didn't really like g6. After g6, knight e5 can never be evicted. Something like knight c6, bishop h6, rook e8. The queen is coming to the king side, maybe with queen g3 followed by bishop g5. That could be kind of unpleasant. And of course, if I ever take the knight, then the f6 square is defended. So I couldn't see an actual refutation to g6 during the game, but it felt slightly more uncomfortable than what I did. And the engine disagrees. g6 is the best move. I played f5, and f5 should be a slight advantage to white, although nothing serious and nothing... It's not too bad. f5 is just a weakening move. Even though it blocks the queen and bishop, it permanently gives away e5, which I figured, well, I'm giving it away anyway if I play g6. It's not like I can play f6. So yeah, she played knight e5. It should be plus 0.4, plus 0.5, and g6 would have been just equal. Okay, rook c8. At this point, it's about 11 o'clock, or I think it was about 11 o'clock. I don't know. So remember, my bus is... I have to leave at like 12 to catch my bus. So I was getting kind of anxious. Also, I don't wear a watch, so I had no idea what the time was exactly. In this position, she took on d5. Knight takes, of course, knight takes. I want to avoid taking with the e-pawn. Bishop b3, an excellent move. All the moves she played were the best engine moves, and I'm not insinuating anything. She's a good player, and her moves were relatively natural. But she probed my weaknesses at every turn, and I just had no real chance to do anything active. So the threat here, in many cases, is if I, for example, play knight f6, then, you know, she can take queen f5 because the pawn is pinned. Also, ideas like queen g3, bishop h6 are coming, and of course g6 drops the exchange. I don't have rook f7. I don't have rook f6 because of bishop g5. So I was getting slightly worried here, and I had decided to play bishop e8, which is fine. Bishop e8 simply defends my knight. Another idea behind bishop b3 was to take and, well, isolate my d-pawn, when having a pawn on f5 is not only not useful, but it's actually bad. It's a far advanced pawn that doesn't do anything, and the knight is a monster on e5 if that happens. So bishop e8 preventing bishop takes d5, e d5. Queen g3. And I had a huge thing here. Of course, bishop h6 is the main idea. It's not too scary, so I could afford to play a move like bishop d6, where after bishop h6 I have queen f6. That's possible, but it's not too pleasant. Also, bishop d6 once again allows bishop takes d5. So instead of that, I just played king h8. And the evaluation doesn't change. King h8 is fine. I'm just avoiding bishop h6 ideas. However, knight f7, if ever undefended, will be devastating now. So I have a bishop on e8 and the rook on f8, so it's not a big deal yet, but it could be. And she thought for a while, played bishop g5 and offered the draw. And here are my thoughts. Firstly, what's the time? Secondly, I don't think I'm better. I don't think I can ever be better here. Best case for me, it's equal. One thing I should have mentioned is that a very interesting move here was to play f4. And I tried to figure it out, but I couldn't make it work. So if I play f4, then queen g4 on the e6 pawn, I have to play rook f6. And let's say white just plays a normal move, rook d1. How do I continue? Why did I play f4? What happens on bishop takes, queen takes, bishop takes? Am I just going to drop a pawn? I didn't like the idea of weakening my e-pawn. On the other hand, this could have given me an active plan. The plan is, of course, to play f3 once the knight is gone. But how do I get rid of the knight? I just couldn't make it work. If you turn on the engine here, it says plus 0.5 for white, and the engine plays bishop a5. Understandable. Probably bishop c7 takes f3. But still, it's not easy to start an attack here. Also, after something like bishop d2, maybe I would have played bishop b6 to just put pressure on the pawn. I'm not sure. So instead of that, as I said, I played king h8. She played bishop g5 and offered the draw. And, excuse me, I noticed that she was wearing a watch. So I asked what the time was. And it turned out that if I accept the draw, I'm going to catch the bus and everything will be fine. If I decline the draw, then obviously I have to play for a win until the game is over. Otherwise, what's the point of declining? I definitely missed the bus because not only is this position unclear, but it's also still very complex. We'll play another 50 moves. I'm not saying I would have won. I'm not saying I would have lost. I don't know. The engine says white is slightly better, but I ended up accepting the draw. And, you know, coming back to Croatia on time. I think I would have risked missing my flight ultimately had I declined. So I think this is a reasonable practical decision, especially considering the game situation. All in all, it was an okay tournament. I finished on 5.5 out of 9, and I had a plus score. I earned 13 FIDE points, which is okay. Some of the games could have gone better. I don't think, I mean, I only had one loss in the tournament. I lost to the Grandmaster Horvat Josef. I shouldn't have lost that game. It was obviously equal and slightly better for me for 50 moves. I may have won against Frank Gertosio, the FIDE master. This game, I have no idea. Maybe I would have won, maybe I would have lost. I highly doubt that this would have ended in a draw had we played it out. Other than that, I think most results were realistic. The only real regret I have is the game against Horvat Josef and the round 2 game where I had a -20 position, a completely winning rook and pawn endgame, 2 pawns up, and they messed it up. That's the only thing that I think there's no excuse for. The game against Horvat Josef, I was on 30 seconds and I couldn't calculate the draw correctly. My round 2 game, there's no excuse. So that's the only half point that I blundered away due to lack of skill, I feel. All in all, a good tournament. I'm going to play in the Croatian League very soon, so that's going to be the next thing you see in the Road to GM series. Thank you very much. Stay tuned for more chess. Bye-bye.